welcome back to the Dwarven Tavern. I am your host, Dr. Jeff Goins, and
I am Lyric.
And we together are going to talk to you about keeping the game moving.
Yes.
This is a very near and dear, probably actually everybody.
Well, it's a very important subject.
Period. I mean, no one likes to play a game that stagnates.
Yeah.
The dwindles and dallies. So we're going to give you a few tips on how to keep that rolling, how to keep your game rolling.
Yeah. So with every RPG, it is very detrimental to have some sort of loo to the game or something that makes the game kind of pitter out, which apparently is the word of the day.
Pitter. And or patter.
The reason is because you don't have any sort of like artificial I guess reins to pull you along, like in video games.
Yeah.
So with RPG games, you have to, purposefully move the game forward by yourself, and that's usually up to the DM to keep things moving. And there have been, you have characters that are sometimes well aware of the importance of keeping the game moving forward, but oftentimes you find characters who are just not with it and pretty much fight any sort of progress that they can.
Right, because if the focus is not on you, hypothetically, if you're not being focused on, it's easy to get distracted. Super easy.
Yes.
And that's not saying that that players are attention whores or anything like that. It's just if the spotlight isn't on you, it's easy to look around and see other things and get distracted through no fault of your own or the dungeon master.
Yes. Simply because there's a lot of I guess you could call them distractables. Like there's a lot of
things.
They're
little lunch boxes full of things to do. It's like a Fisher Price distractable lunchbox. You got the beads and the little trucks.
So, this topic is to really illustrate what you can do to avoid those certain instances.
Right.
And one of those ways is to, I guess you could, use a timer. You could have buy a little hourglass that can set up a specific time frame of
stopwatch on your phone.
Yeah, set up. They are allotted this much time to make an action or come up with a conclusion for something.
Yeah. That was one of the things that I was going to mention is that the
Do you have a stopwatch anywhere?
On my phone.
No, I mean he has little hourglasses.
I used to have it. Yeah, it's in my D&D stuff upstairs, but
where it belongs.
Where it belongs in my case, my bug out gamer's case. So the thing is about gaming, about the role playing games, the one thing that is super subjective is the passage of time. Mm-hmm. And I read a meme that said, only in gaming can a trip of 3 months take 30 seconds and a 12-second battle take 4 hours.
Yeah.
And that's how it works. I mean, so
time dilation is...
Yeah. It really is. And so there are methods that we use to keep that going, to keep the game rolling along.
Yeah. And the clock is one of them. Another one to, make sure that everybody stays focused is, let's take an example. If you are in the middle of a battle and you've got, we'll say 4 players and 1 DM. So that's 5 people. That's a pretty average game, especially here at the Tavern. And the DM is going to each player per round and discussing what each person does in the middle of a battle. That is pretty easy to keep flowing because everybody's usually engaged and action usually doesn't take very long. Mm-hmm. I'm talking about a very stereotypical game and how it would go because obviously there's going to be exceptions to this rule. Right. However, if we were to take those same characters and put them in a scenario where one person is perhaps not engaged or not involved with what's going on.
They could be single. I didn't think that was funny at all.
that's all it deserved, and then you made it worse. So that person may feel left out and therefore starts to derail their train of thought.
Right. They get on their phone.
Yeah, or they start, doing distracting things in the game. Like, for example, if, say, 2 characters are thieves and other 2 characters are more diplomatic, like a fighter and a cleric. So we have 2 thieves, a fighter, and a cleric. The fighter and the cleric probably
walk into a bar.
They want to go to the main quest or the side quest that they're currently set on to get to the main quest. The thieves are probably wanting nothing to do with that, so they're going to go cause some mischief off in the tavern.
Right. Well, a perfect example is with Myahan, Sicarius, and Drom.
Yes.
There was a quest that they were going to go find this wizard's tower, and Ian's character Drom was leveraging a hostile buyout of the keep on the Borderlands.
Yes.
And these 2, Lyric and Josh, were playing Myahan and Sicarius, and they were like, "Can we go? Can we just go?
We have something that we need to do.
Our horses are ready. Can we go?"
Hold on out. I'm busy.
Alpha Mo, I'm right in the middle of a real estate purchase. We're haggling on points, all right? Escrow is serious business. And they're like, oh my God. So,
well, I wouldn't say that's necessarily... I mean, that's very obvious that the characters have different ideas of what's important.
their priorities
I'm
were
thinking,
different.
like,
Slightly.
There's this other campaign that I'm in that has a lot of people, and that's another big way to get distracted, is just you have too many gamers. And in that game, a couple of us, like maybe half of the campaign, wants to stay serious and role play and stay on track with the story, and the others are just there to, set that town on fire or steal from the latest merchant that moved in, or I wouldn't call any of them murder hobos, but I would call them
murderous hobos.
No, I would say that they're there to have a good time.
Right.
And having a good time doesn't necessarily line up with having a storyline. So when that happens, the game kind of splits in 2.
Right.
And what you can do to best utilize that as the DM is to, let them go their separate ways. You can work with, having a campaign over here and having a campaign over here. It's difficult, and when you're DMing for one, the other feels left out, and they get, in real life distracted, and that can cause problems, but it can work if you're good with a balance.
Right.
Another way to avoid that is to have a deputy DM, which is something that we have coined here at the Dwarven Tavern, where the campaign may be a little more complicated or serious, and one of the players acts as a secondary DM to answer any questions or help with lore or, move the campaign along if it's small moments.
Right.
So, I am actually going to be a deputy DM for a separate game because it'll be for a rather new dungeon master, and while they know some of the rules, I'm a little more well versed in 3.5. Excuse me. So I can help out with other people in the game when the DM has their hands full answering questions to people like closer to him. So you can act as a secondary, basically, to make sure that the campaign all shoves in the same direction.
Right. Another large, it's not really a problem, but it can be an issue, comes in the form of the wizards. And the magic users trying to figure, and clerics and druids.
Magic users.
Yeah, anyone who uses any kind of magic, trying to figure out which spell to use.
Yeah.
I think that is the most important thing to put a serious time limit on, because internal dialogue, when you're thinking, okay, let's take the example of working on a computer or something. You're working on something, and you come across this thing that needs to be pried out or something, and it might be flimsy, it might be fragile. So you're thinking, you're looking through your spell book, in this case it's your toolbox, and you're thinking, what would be the best tool to pry this out, to kill this dragon, and or to dispel this demon? Well, I could use Mordenkainen's Disjunction. I could use Banish. I could use Geas or Quest. I could, there's a bunch of different spells. What do I have? What do I have access to? I could use a screwdriver. I could use one of those suction cup things.
Yeah.
It's all the same. But
multi-tool.
The one thing that those two things have in common is that that you're thinking in a split second.
Yeah.
You're going over all of the tools at your disposal in a split second. So in game time, Lyric got the initiative, and I was 3 points off from her, so I go second. But that gives me enough time to look through my spell book or to think about what spells I have.
Yeah.
But in the real world, I'm poring over the player's handbook or the spell compendium of all the spells in existence, or looking online on some one of the archives for all of the spells that has ever been written.
Yeah.
And that could take hours.
Yeah.
It could literally
and
take
has.
hours. And has.
There was a scenario where I was playing Sheila, who is the champion of Cord. At the time, she was just a noble cleric in his name. And she was able to use a spell, and I had a spell concept in mind, but I didn't actually have the spell. And some games we play where we don't have to write down our spells ahead of time and prepare them according to the player's handbook. We can actually look in the game, in the book, while we're playing the game.
Right.
And obviously that causes this exact problem.
Right,
and
problem.
One of those problems is that I had a spell in mind, but I didn't know what it was called. And so I spent 2 hours in game looking for the spell
that the character would have known.
The character would have known. And luckily, that was a very involved game. So while I was looking, I actually forfeited my first initiative so I could go last after everybody else.
What do you call that spell? It creates this ball of like fire. It's a big ball.
It's like
of fire.
And
what is the name of that spell?
You throw it, you chuck it. Is it called chucking fire? Is that what it's called?
Chuck, chain lightning.
It's torch lighter. I don't remember what it's called.
It lights everything. Everything. Omni lighter.
Omni lighter.
Omni fire.
That's it.
Of a ball of omni.
So
2 hours that went on.
Yes, 2 hours. And
it wasn't Fireball.
It wasn't Fireball. It was.
I would have had to kill her.
No, it was. I can't even remember it right now. It's like you become bigger. You grow a size, and
enlarge.
I think that's what it was. No, there's 2 different types of spells. Okay, in my defense, there's 2 different types of spells.
Was it Tinser's transformation?
I don't know.
That's a wizard. That's a wizard spell, though. You were a cleric.
I was a cleric. Yes.
Yeah,
I don't know. You can make fun of me in the comments. I don't mind.
I will.
You're making fun of me right now, buddy.
I'll be the first to comment.
So, as I was looking through this, I forfeited my initiative to go after everybody else. And while they were working on it, I was looking it up. And when everybody's initiative had passed, we halted the game so that I could find what I was looking for, because it was really important for the storyline. And it was, very...
It was like the perfect spell.
Yeah, and it was very lucky that it was such an engrossing campaign, because while it was taking me 2 hours, the DM, who was Ian, he was helping the other campaigners, which was you and Mom, and Josh.
Yeah.
To, sort out the story and,
afterthought.
To sort out the story and to make it flow better. Because there were certain things that we may have left off, and there were certain points of the plot that was a little hazy. So luckily the DM was able to take charge while I was doing my thing. And while we were waiting on me, the DM was able to keep everybody on track and in line. Yeah. And it took me 2 hours, but I did find it, and it was very epic, and it turned out great.
Yeah, and it wouldn't have been as imperative to use that spell if the character hadn't known it.
Yes.
Or you didn't have an idea of what spell you were going to use. You were just looking for a spell that would fit in. But you knew the spell that you wanted to use.
Yeah.
You just couldn't remember the name. You couldn't remember the name of it. So, but the player was like, that spell, I know what it does.
Yeah.
But I gotta say the name of it.
Yeah. So, and on top of that, not only did I not know the name of the spell that I wanted, I was also looking and comparing if there were other spells that I could have used instead.
Your character was sitting there going, come on!
She's like,
Cast the spell, talking to her.
I'm trying to do something here.
I want to do this, so come on.
Yeah. So, honestly, if...
Lyric's like, I'm so sorry.
I'm so sorry. I said that like 7 times while we were... more than that, definitely. At least a dozen.
That's great.
But obviously, if you want to avoid that, you can make sure that all of your spell casters have some sort of limitations, like the ones put in place by the player's handbook, even.
Yeah.
That's there for a reason.
The rules are in place for a reason.
So,
More of a set of guidelines, but...
the reason that we don't have them for, like, clerics is because it's a divine intervention. And you can be like, hey, God, can you, like... give me holy water or something. I kind of need that right now. And he's like, toit, do it.
Toit?
Yeah.
That's how Cord makes things happen.
Yeah.
Toit!
So, use limitations that are in place. Put limitations in place.
Another good thing, speaking of limitations, is the gavel. You can use a regular hammer. You don't hit the players with it.
Please don't. That's abuse.
But one good method, and I've used it once or twice. It usually doesn't even occur, but you take the timer. When the timer runs out, you say something like, I'll hit the gavel 3 times. When the timer runs out, at the end of 3 gavel hits, you have to declare or lose your turn.
Yeah.
So the timer runs out, you go...
blah, 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 and
if they don't have it ready...
Yeah. That was me casting my spell.
Ermagerd, Furburl.
Furburl.
But yeah, then you can put little things like that in place and make it more official.
Yeah.
And it seems less personal. Like if somebody is having trouble, like you were. It's not the same of somebody who is a general nuisance who just wants to take time and not really into the game and distracted. So you hit the gavel, and that snaps them around without saying you're being an asshole. Stop.
Yeah.
Although it kind of does. It makes them officially an asshole.
If you lay out that rule at the beginning, make sure everybody's on the same page, then that communication should prevent any sort of hurt feelings.
Right.
Another way to get past distractions is to just simply take a break from the game.
Yeah.
Step back from the table, regain your bearings, maybe discuss one-on-one with different players, especially the troublemakers.
And set a time limit for the break.
Yeah, potty break, food break.
15 minutes, 5 minutes, 10 minutes, whatever.
Yeah, just make sure that everybody understands a clear and concise removal of themselves from the game, so that they can, reassess who they are playing.
Right. And another thing that will help avoid distractions is if you have an argument with the rules, or you have an argument with the DM's decision, try not to bring it up in the middle of the game. Make a note of it. You've got your character right here.
Yeah.
Your player's right here.
And if you're smart, you have an extra paper with it too.
Yeah, and you just make notes of a rule that you disagree with or whatever.
Yeah.
And then save some time after the session that moves along more quickly. Save some time after the session to bring it up. Say, I really don't like the auto fire rule. Being an extra die of damage or whatever, it's like I don't
like the magic missile being capped at so
5.
many dice a level.
Yeah. Well, it's 5. It's 5
Yeah,
magic
yeah.
missiles at 10th level. And it's like, at 10th level, you...
I should be powerful. I should have the most magic.
Yeah, I should be able to put more oomph on the magic missiles or
Yeah.
whatever.
I couldn't remember if it was
that?
5 or 6.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
just put it away for the time being. And I would say if it is, pertinent to happen right then and there in the game because of what's going on. Gosh, what do
Egg
you
timer?
do? What? Yeah.
Egg timer. You got this long to make your argument.
Yeah.
And,
Or try to, I guess, just wait your turn. For example, like if we were playing a game and he says that the bugbear, takes a healing potion, and I'm like, the hell? I would just be like, are you, like, I didn't think that the bugbear had an intelligence high enough to understand what a healing potion is. And you could then state
Right.
your argument.
I have a really good example. I was playing a game...
Dead bugbear, smart.
yeah, in the late 80s. And it was first edition. And the player was a rules lawyer. He prided himself in having memorized the book, the monster manual, which at the time you weren't really supposed to do that as a player. You weren't supposed to go through the monster manual.
Yeah.
You were only supposed to go through the player's handbook. So he happened upon a random encounter of orcs. And in my encounter table, I rolled the dice to see how many there were, and there were like 17 orcs.
Yeah.
And
Dozen. Half.
one of the worst things you can say to me when I'm dungeon mastering is nuh-uh. Exactly. Yeah. And I said, "There's you count 17 of them, and they're on foot and they're charging you." And he went, "Nuh-uh." I went, "Excuse me. What did you say?" I'm loading my gun over here, and he said, "You can't. It can't be. It's impossible. It can't happen." And I'm like, "What are you talking about? I just said it is, so therefore it is." And he said right here, and he flipped to the page of the orcs, from 30 to 300. There can't be fewer than 30 ever, because it says so right here in the book. And I said, "Okay, there's 3 groups of 300. And he's like, "Oh,
You done goofed.
you done goof." And then, and then we had a fight, both on paper and off camera, and because he was being a dick, and telling me that I can't put however many orcs I want to put in, and he argued that point until...
See, I would have gone a different direction. Oh, well, actually, there's 6. And they all want to eat your flesh.
Right.
They don't care about the rest of the party. They're cool with them.
Yeah, but it's you.
But you.
Oh, man. So that was one moment that I was exceptionally furious, because saying "nuh-uh" is almost as bad as saying, "Oh, that's bullshit." When something happens and somebody says that,
I only say that out of pure frustration as the character.
as the character, yeah. But when the player says it to me,
But talking about the rules lawyer, I actually do have a beginner's video talking about how to deal with rules lawyer, how to not be a rules lawyer, and how rules lawyer can even be beneficial, because they can be at times. And I believe I say in the video that they can double as the deputy DM. So use their knowledge to your advantage.
yeah, there's a time and place.
Yeah.
Though. I mean, it depends on the situation. If you tell a dungeon master they can't do something because of something else, be very careful about that, and be very sure that what you're telling them is helpful to the game. And be concise. Don't, just...
well, also how he went about it was very condescending. Like, for example, if you were to say, there are 17 orcs, and I know by the monster manual that there can only be groups of 30 and up, I'd be like, are you sure? Because I thought See, I'm putting the blame on me.
Right. I thought it was only supposed to be 30 to 300.
Yeah, you say, like, is it only half of the group? Because then, if I knew that it was only half of the group, that could earn me experience points.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, wait a minute, 17?
That means that they were just encountered by someone else.
And then you'd have been like, oh, 25 experience points. Yeah. You got that.
Yeah.
You see half of them are ragged and bloody and some of them are wounded. It's like, whoa, they just went through something. Maybe we can strike a bargain or something.
Right.
And, that aids the game instead of being like, yeah, you're full of shit.
Nuh-uh. Ooh, man, that makes me mad. I get furious about that. That was 35 years ago or more. It still makes me mad, but it was very distracting. So the point is, though, the points that we covered is that it's the dungeon master's job to keep the game going.
Yes.
The dungeon master can also be distracting.
Yes.
If the dungeon master doesn't stay on focus, then
we actually have
game gets derailed.
We have a DM who they kind of humor every distraction, and it makes the game, go very wobbly on its storyline because, some players are wanting to go one way, and then there's like maybe one or two that are trying to do these really dumb things. And those really dumb things get humored, and that completely just annihilates the game.
I do have kind of a problem with that sometimes.
I'm not talking about you.
Well, no, I actually, I'm.
Oh wait, no, I am talking about you. You have a problem.
I'm remembering, I'm remembering several situations where somebody will want to bring up a point or something like that, and we're being friendly, and I'm kind of a pushover when it comes to that. Sometimes. I
think that's different because there's a difference between wanting to be amicable with your players and then wanting to please every single player. Right. When you're being amicable, you can still say no, which you do. And
I try to,
with this particular DM, it's very hard for them to say, yes or no to the players, especially if they want to do something really dumb. And for example, let's say I'm just trying to come up with just a random incident that did not happen. Let's say they just want to loot the bartender. Like they want to actually pick the pocket of the tavern keep while they're having a drunken conversation.
Yeah.
When the rest of the party member is sitting in the back of the tavern talking to the fucking tiefling who has the story quest in her back pocket. So the DM, a bad DM would be like, okay, well, I mean, you can try to pick the bartender and whatever. A really good DM will say, no, obviously you can't do that. That's he's standing right there. He knows. He's like, what are you doing?
What are you doing? Get your hand out of my pocket.
Get out of here. But this DM in particular would allow the chance to do it, and if they succeeded, then that would kind of spiral out of control. And then us sitting with the tiefling would be like, what's going on over there? I guess we're not doing this part of the story anymore. Let's go over here and find out what's going on with the bartender.
Wow.
So which that's kind of a double-edged sword, because on one hand you're aiding the distraction, on the other hand a good DM is able to manipulate the story however the players want it to go. Right. So it's kind of a
that would have been a good place to put more clues to the furtherment of the actual goal.
Yeah, but
you pick his pocket and you find a map.
Yeah, but in that particular instance, this DM wouldn't have necessarily connected those dots.
Right.
So connect the dots, I guess, is the
situational awareness of the DM. If they want to go one way, and it was something that I said in an earlier video that I did. If they want to go, if they want to go south and you want them to go north, don't put any metagaming in there.
And, force them to go south.
Move the plot point to where they can find it instead of moving them to find the plot point.
Move some sort of like scavenger hunt or treasure hunt, I guess would be the better word for it. To get them to slowly make their way to the plot point without forcing it too much.
Yeah.
Because otherwise it feels very unnecessary and unnatural.
And distracting, and it derails the game. So it's a way to keep your game. Always keep your goals in mind, but don't stress it on them.
Yes.
As a DM, because they're wanting to have fun, and if they want to do something other than what you've got planned, maybe what you've got planned is not that interesting.
Or maybe what you've got planned can wait. Maybe it can be for a different game. Maybe it can be for a later session.
Yeah, some of the most fun games I've ever dungeon mastered was games that had nothing to do with what I started the game over.
I mean, some of the time I don't even have a plot point just because I know my characters are going to make it more interesting than anything I could come up with.
All right, let's game. What do you guys want to do?
You guys awaken the tavern.
You awaken a tavern.
Go.
Roll initiative. Which we're actually gonna be Taverneer Lisa's she's like the master of speed gaming, and you and her are gonna do a talk about it in the near future.
Yes.
So it should be a lot of fun. So was there anything else you wanted to?
Not that. We can summarize it by saying, if there are distractions in your game, it is on the Dungeon Master to be able to either use those distractions to your advantage, snuff them out, or simply take a break from the game and let the distractions kind of filter themselves out. Because
we're not advocating killing your players.
Please don't.
Just the characters. Snuff them out.
Destroy them.
Know the difference.
And recognizing the distractions is kind of it's very session to session, so we can't really give.
Yeah, it does. It varies a lot from session to session, but there are those who chronically cause distractions by bringing up things that are off topic, and it's your job as a DM to keep things on topic.
Mm-hmm. And honestly, if you have a continuous troublemaker, then it's time to pull them aside and say, "Hey, you're really disrupting the game."
And you don't have to be a dick about it.
No, you can. You gotta
be cool.
Be firm, but say you're kind of derailing the game.
Be firm. You're causing distractions. You must stop. I'm getting tired. From all this firmness.
You can, just let them know, you're causing kind of a problem, and
Would you have to say something?
Yeah.
I'm causing kind of a problem.
When I have this break bad news, I get all nasally.
I got some bad news. Oh God, she's being nasally.
Oh no!
I've done something
I wanted
wrong.
to talk to you. Oh God, here it comes.
Oh, great. What did I do? Nasal gal.
So, and then as a player, if you notice someone else being super distracting,
punch them.
I rolled a very low initiative on that. Discuss it with them and tell them, we're trying to play a game here. Focus.
We're walking here. What is what? You
just will not leave me alone today, will you?
Will not. I refuse. But yeah, she's absolutely right. Even though
you won't, Mike. Stop it.
But yeah, she's 100% right. You don't have to be a jerk about it, and you can, it's like, well, can we focus, without being angry or mean. You don't have to, because if you're gaming together, there's a really good chance that you're all friends.
Yeah. And Lyric's number 2 rule: always communicate. So follow that rule, and everything will be fine.
She's never told me that before. Always communicate.
It's in my beginners videos. You would know if you'd watch them.
I don't
on
watch
that
videos.
On that note, if you guys have any situations that you want to tell us about, comment below. If you have any video ideas, we'd love to hear them.
Suggestions on how to handle distractions.
Yeah, that'd be great. And
just focus and shoot it to us. Just don't be distracted.
Yeah, keep it focused.
Keep it focused.
I'm sure other people will want to hear any sort of suggestions that you may have. So we are experts, but we're not the only experts.
That's right.
So on that note, I think this topic is nice and wrapped up.
Yeah, I think it is. And on behalf of the entire cast and crew of the Dwarven Tavern, I am Dr. Jeff Goins.
And I am Lyric.
And we wish for you to want for nothing but adventure. And at first I feared it, then I charged. Thanks for watching, and we will see you next time.
Let the